That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, before we get into this video, I have a major announcement, and that is the Fantasy Flock Network is currently looking for contributors. When we blew up this last football season, we got over like 22,000 subscribers on the main channel. I was receiving like a DM to 3 DMs every single day going, Mason, I love the channel. I love what y'all are doing. I would love to get involved. I would love to make videos. I would love to edit videos. I'd love to make graphics. I'd love to do research and so many other things. And my response almost every single time was, man, I appreciate the support so much, but I am very sorry with how fast this is going, with how busy I currently am. I really don't have time to get other people involved and try to work everything out logistically. But now we are in the off season. This is the time where we are going to be looking to get people implemented in the channel. I would love for you to reach out to me whether or not you want to be making videos, doing research. Preferably though, the top 2 things that I am looking for is I am looking for people that are interested in fantasy baseball, that possibly want to make fantasy baseball videos. And 2, I am looking for people that are graphic designers, that want to make graphics, that want to possibly edit our videos and add a dimension that we don't currently have. But also, if y'all just have any other ideas on how you think we can improve the channel and how you could help us do so, I would love to hear from you. I'll leave my Twitter, I'll leave my Instagram if y'all want to DM me there, as well as an email that you can email us at for anybody that is interested. But let's get into this and let's talk about wide receivers that I do not have a single share of in Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues. And I'm going to be completely honest here. Some of these guys I whiffed on. I mean, some of these guys you're going to hear and you're going to go, oh my God, why would I ever listen to Mason? He is clearly the dumbest guy on here. And yeah, I mean, that's true. Nobody's hiding behind that fact. Anyway, all jokes aside, let's dive into it. In our first wide receiver that I'm going to be talking about not having in a single league is going to hurt, and this is Stefan Diggs. Okay, guys, the reason that I avoided Stefan Diggs and the reason that I decided to sell him in the few leagues where we had him after he was traded to Buffalo was simply because I was scared. I'm going to put that out there. I was burned whenever Odell Beckham Jr. was traded to Cleveland, and we all remember the hype surrounding Odell Beckham Jr. after Baker Mayfield's insane rookie season, and we were all drooling over what that combination was going to look like the following year. We were all drooling over what they were going to be able to accomplish together. And like so many wide receivers changing teams before him, Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham Jr. completely flamed out. I mean, they were not able to get on the same page. Odell looked like a completely different wide receiver, playing a completely different role, and obviously was a major disappointment in fantasy football. And that followed a trend of wide receivers who switched teams during an offseason that were unable to live up to their expectations the following year. I mean, if you just look back at the past 15 years in football, there have been very few examples where you have seen those high-profile wide receivers switch teams and find great success. But in the case of Stefan Diggs, this may single-handedly be the best example over the past 10 years. I don't know exactly when Randy Moss switched over to the Patriots. I want to say maybe that was 2007, so definitely longer than 10 years ago. But anyway, here was Stefan Diggs. He was able to come in on a shortened offseason at the same time and was able to implement himself as an alpha wide receiver in Buffalo. So the reason I avoided Stefan Diggs is we are looking at that historical trend of wide receivers changing teams tending to fail, combined with the fact that this was a shortened offseason. If you don't remember, guys, the main narrative before the season started in 2020 was that all these players switching teams, combined with all of the rookies coming in, we're going to have a very difficult time making an impact because we did not get the usual training camp. We did not get the usual preseason for the wide receivers and the quarterbacks to get on the same page. But everybody who was saying that, which was almost 99% of people talking fantasy football, including myself, we were completely wrong because the rookies came in with a shortened offseason, completely smashed. Stefan Diggs did the same thing as well as our next wide receiver, who I don't have in a single league at the same time, and this is DeAndre Hopkins. Now, here with Hopkins, I don't want to spend too much time on it. I mean, we looked at him switching teams to the Arizona Cardinals, and I was sitting there going, oh my God, this is the same exact thing as Odell Beckham Jr. This is a star wide receiver who the coach and the team are put up with, and they are shipping him out at a discount for a second-year quarterback out of the University of Oklahoma who had a fantastic rookie year. And I was looking at DeAndre Hopkins, and honestly, another thing that I was scared of is I was scared that the reason he had a ridiculous 30% target share season after season after season, the reason that he was getting 160 targets a year in Houston, was because of the scheme, because of Deshaun Watson wanting to focus in on his stud alpha wide receiver. Because if y'all remember, a strong narrative about the Arizona Cardinals coming into the year were that they were going to be the spread offense. They were going to be the Mike Leach, get everybody the ball. Nobody's going to see a target share over 20%. And I bought into that. I bought into the narrative of the wide receiver changing teams. I was scared. I was wrong. DeAndre Hopkins, just like Stefan Diggs, were able to single-handedly win fantasy football leagues this past season. And yeah, I'm just sitting here going, that's another lesson that we need to learn. Y'all know in my running back video where I talked about not owning a single share of Alvin Kamara or Aaron Jones because of the profile of a running back that they were, and I did not quite understand the value behind it. Now, a lesson that we learned this past season with a Stefan Diggs and a DeAndre Hopkins was that these wide receivers changing teams, we can't automatically dismiss them. We can't just pretend because of historical trends that they are going to fail, because there are so many different variables that go into it, and we need to make sure that we are focusing in more on the wide receiver talent and less on the overall context of the situation. Okay, so now our next wide receiver that we don't have a single share of at the same time, another wide receiver that increased his value from last offseason to this offseason, is Deontay Johnson. Okay, so with Deontay Johnson, it's kind of been a wild ride for myself. I drafted him a good amount back in Dynasty rookie drafts in 2019, simply because it was the same effect of Terry McLaurin, where I was looking at a wide receiver that was selected in the third round of the NFL draft, and Dynasty owners were massively discounting him and allowing him to fall to the third round of Dynasty rookie drafts. And I was going, you know what? The draft capital's here. Let's take a chance. Let's click that draft button. But just like Terry McLaurin, after a very strong performance by Deontay Johnson in his rookie season, I went out there and I thought I sold high, but apparently I just sold on his way up to becoming the wide receiver one for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, my thought process here with why we did not invest into Deontay Johnson was I thought we were looking at a 2019 season that was not predictive on his future success. We looked at the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2019 with Mason Rudolph, with Doug Hodges, with Juju Smith-Schuster banged up throughout the entire season, and said, you know what? This has no impact on what's going to happen next year. Juju is going to come back 100% healthy. They're going to have a new quarterback under center, and Juju Smith-Schuster is actually younger than Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson came into the NFL at a very old age. We know that is a flag with some of these wide receivers. So I looked at all those factors and I said, I don't care. I'm going to throw 2019 out the window. I am going to operate as Juju Smith-Schuster is the alpha wide receiver one in Pittsburgh. And this is another thing that we are wrong on. And I think the lesson learned here with Deontay Johnson is just because we have a strong bias with one player over the other doesn't mean we can create narratives for ourselves that fit that bias, which is what we decided to do with Juju, which is why we failed with our Deontay Johnson evaluation. All right, so now our next wide receiver that we are going to talk about is someone that benefited myself for avoiding him, but it's not because we were smart or anything. We just got lucky. And this is Cortland Sutton. And here with Cortland Sutton, I mean, it was very simple on why I was avoiding him in fantasy drafts in 2020. And it's that with Sutton, we looked at his team invest into the wide receiver position in the first and the second round of the 2020 NFL draft, as well as selecting a tight end, a receiving tight end in the first round in 2019. And very similar to why we avoided Aaron Jones, we always pay attention to what the NFL franchise is telling us. We are paying attention to what the front office and the coaching staff is saying. And what I mean by when we say we are listening to what they are saying is not literally. I mean, we are not listening to press conferences with coaches going, this wide receiver looks great, we're going to get them the ball, he's going to have a great year. In my opinion, that really does not matter. What actually matters is listening to actions. And that is one thing that leads us to have success season after season after season. But here, I think Dynasty owners are so quick to forget that the majority of people had Cortland Sutton valued significantly higher than Jerry Jeudy an offseason ago. So, a video that comes out tomorrow, I talk about what price point I am looking to buy Cortland Sutton at. Because while we were significantly lower on him compared to consensus last offseason, now that people have dropped down his value just because he got injured at the very beginning of the year when he should be good to go in 2021, this is going to be a spot where I am looking to buy. All right, so now our last wide receiver that we are going to talk about had a very polarizing 2020 season, and this is Debo Samuel. And here with Debo Samuel, I was mainly selling him in our Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues where we had him in offseason to go because of his age. Very similar to a Terry McLaurin, very similar to a Deontay Johnson. I drafted Debo Samuel almost aggressively in our Dynasty rookie drafts, and that's because we looked at the San Francisco 49ers. I believe they traded up to get Debo Samuel at the very beginning of the second round in the 2019 NFL Draft. If they did not trade up, I know they selected him at the very beginning of the 2019 NFL Draft. And Dynasty owners did not want to really give credit to the draft capital that was put into Debo Samuel. So I came away with a ton of Debo after our rookie drafts. But after his rookie season, I went out there and I sold high. And the reason I sold high was two things. One, we know with Debo Samuel, he is a much older wide receiver than pretty much everybody else who was drafted in 2019. So we would naturally expect him to have a decent rookie year, and we don't need to be jumping up his value like an A.J. Brown or like a DK Metcalf. And two, the reason that we are looking to sell Debo Samuel is because of the team investment into Brandon Ayuk. Guys, this is something that I think a good amount of people should take note of because they are currently not using it in their own Dynasty Fantasy Football evaluations. Please listen to what the NFL front offices are telling us. Listen to what these NFL teams are doing. And by trading up to get Brandon Ayuk in the first round of the 2020 NFL Draft, I think the San Francisco 49ers clearly demonstrated that they did not feel Debo Samuel could be a wide receiver seeing a 20 to 25% target share, especially when we know that George Kittle is always going to be the #1 option on that offense regardless. I think it was a clear sell high spot for Debo Samuel. And honestly, a wide receiver that I'm not going to be looking to buy this offseason unless his value continues to fall because I have no idea where the targets would come from. But thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, if y'all did, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps us out. And yeah, that's it. I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow.